Okay, here I am. I'm going to post another video. This is actually from Familia TV, and he's got some excerpts, I think, from Auditing the Auditor. And basically, I thought it was very informative, and that's basically why I'm posting this. People did ask me for some more content, but this is really well stated and very educational.
Why I made the effort of taking this video, putting it on this channel here. Check the video out, guys. You're gonna love it. You're gonna learn. Poster 7, yes, it's been misunderstood by the damn frauditors who don't want to admit to it. Okay, they do. Postal people have that right to tell them to get the hell out. Let's check out the video and you'll see what I mean, guys.
Sometime around February 24th, 2020, photojournalist and activist Jason Gutterman, along with his teenage son Benjamin Gutterman, were traveling through the town of Silverthorne, Colorado, when they decided to conduct a First Amendment audit on the local post office. Mr. Gutterman entered the post office and stood in line to purchase stamps from the register, before being told by the post office employee that he was not allowed to film in the building. Mr. Gutterman challenged the employee's statements, and after the employees and patrons of the post office became disgruntled by Mr. Gutterman's presence, officers from the Silverthorne Police Department arrived on the scene. Although this episode is somewhat longer than the typical episode of ATA, I highly recommend that you watch the entirety of this episode to gain a deeper understanding of the legal complexities at play.
So how are you? Can I get your name and badge number, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Jake Ernest, badge number 28.
28. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So have you ever, their issue is with us filming in here. Are you familiar with the postal rules and regulations?
So I spoke with them. They're telling me that the post office employees are saying they don't permit filming.
Right. So there's something called, I'll show you over here. Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So they have something called Poster 7, okay, which is the rules and regulations of the post office governing conduct on postal property, okay? There is a section for photographs for news, advertising, or commercial purposes, which allows us to take photographs inside of the post office as long as we are not in a restricted area. As long as we're in a publicly accessible
Could we
area.
actually go outside so we're not restricting them getting in?
Yeah, let's go right over here. There's plenty of room.
Policeman says, let's go outside. He says, no, let's go in here. And the policeman says, all right. These policemen are very weak. And they would fall into the category of bad cop because they're not enforcing the laws. They're not helping anybody. And they're being pushed around too much. I have a feeling that this whole town of Silverthorne is a bunch of patsies. Anyway, they gave up $9,500 to gutter trash because they didn't feel like fighting them. But anyway, as a policeman, and I used to be a policeman, I told somebody to go this way. Oh, okay, well, let's go that way instead. No. When I say go this way, it's go this way. And that's not up for debate.
So that's all we're doing. We're traveling through Silverthorne.
Yeah.
I'm in line to buy a stamp. That's all I was doing. And we're just documenting our trip.
Okay. Well, they've asked you to turn the cameras off.
But that's not the law.
Okay.
That's just their feelings and their requests. So I'm going to respectfully deny that request and go by federal law.
Mr. Gutterman asks the post office employee whether he has ever read Poster 7, which contains rules for conduct on postal property as provided in Section 232.1 of Title 39 of the Code of Federal Regulations. The rules and regulations contained in Poster 7 apply to all real property under the charge and control of the U.S. Postal Service, to all tenant agencies, and to all persons entering in or on such property, and they must be kept posted at a conspicuous place on all such property. According to the Postal Service's website, the general policy for photography and filming on Postal Service premises is found in subsection I of Poster 7 and section 124.58 of the Postal Operations Manual, both of which state that, quote, photographs for news purposes may be taken in entrances, lobbies, foyers, corridors, or auditoriums when used for public meetings, except where prohibited by official signs or security force personnel or other authorized personnel or a federal court order or rule. Other photographs may be taken only with the permission of the local local postmaster or installation head. The Postal Service's website further clarifies the policies for filming in a post office, stating that, quote, all requests from qualified news reporting services to film or photograph on Postal Service premises must be referred to the local public affairs and communications representative. Informal snapshots from handheld cameras for personal use may be allowed at the postmaster's discretion, provided that there is no disruption to Postal Service operations and that the pictures are taken from areas accessible to the public. In these cases, no prior permission is required from the Office of Rights and Permissions. However, no lighting or scaffolding may be set up, and no picture can depict any Postal Service employee, customer, security camera, or cover of mail, i.e. the exterior of a mail piece, which would show customer name and address, among other things. Postmasters may restrict any and all photography if they determine that it is disruptive or there are potential security concerns. While the Silverthorne Postmasters policies are not publicly available, Poster 7 grants considerable discretion to post office authorities to regulate photography and filming inside the post office. Courts
All right, let me jump in here.
and contributions, campaigning for election to any public office, collecting private debts, commercial soliciting and vending, and displaying or distributing commercial advertising on postal premises, particularly on a walkway from the parking lot to the entrance.
I'm
In
skipping
reaching
ahead a
the
little
conclusion that
bit.
this rule did not violate the First Amendment, the court determined that, while postal entryways may be open to the public, quote, that fact alone does not establish that such areas must be treated as traditional public fora under the First Amendment. The Postal Service has not expressly dedicated its sidewalks to any expressive activity. Indeed, postal property is expressly dedicated to only one means of communication, the posting of public notices on designated bulletin boards. No Postal Service regulation opens postal sidewalks to any First Amendment activity. Thus, the regulation at issue must be analyzed under the standards set forth for non-public fora. It must be reasonable and not an effort to suppress expression merely because public officials oppose the speaker's view. The reasonableness standard is a fairly low bar, and post office officials could likely establish the reasonableness of a blanket prohibition against filming based on security, privacy, or operational concerns.
The rules are posted on the wall, sir. And I just want to make you aware, I'm going to advise the three of you right now that if you make me leave this post office, you're violating my constitutional rights and you're also violating the law.
Okay.
And I will very adamantly pursue that, and I have a very huge network of defense attorneys and people behind me.
And
so I
the
just wanna
cops
make you
will
aware of that
cave
before it
in.
happens.
That's your right, that's fine.
Okay.
Do you have your IDs on you?
What would you need ID for?
I need to identify who I'm talking to. I was called here lawfully to talk to you. But
Do you suspect me of committing a crime or?
Okay, basically, and again, I'm going old school. When I was a cop, we asked for your ID. That was not up for debate. And if you refused, you went to jail. That's called impeding a police investigation or a formal investigation by a post-certified law enforcement officer. There are many statutes to that. Why they haven't taken him to jail is beyond me. That's what they should have done. Now, by the way, he's broken a lot of laws, and even though he won a settlement, they can still take warrants out on him. This happened in 2020. Yeah, the statute of limitations hasn't run out, so probably their best course of action would be start to take warrants out on this guy Gutter Trash and his son Pigpen. That's the best course of action, and they can still do that even though there was a settlement.
Having committed a crime? Or,
trespassing, sir.
I'm not trespassing.
You are.
Have you asked me to leave?
I'm
If you ask me to leave and I refuse to leave, then I'm trespassing.
I'm asking you to leave.
You're asking me to leave in full knowledge that you're violating my constitutional rights.
They've asked you to leave.
Have you read the law on the wall? Would you like to at least, can we look at that first?
I
Like,
understand what's written on the wall.
you didn't even read
But
it.
the
Okay, so if you ask me to leave, then I'll leave. Then they asked him to leave. He still refused to leave, so let's just get this settled right now. Jason Gutter Trash is a liar, okay? I don't think that's up for debate.
How do you understand
asked you to
that?
leave, okay?
You haven't looked at what's on the wall.
Sir.
Does anybody want to take a look at the rules? And you have the federal law right there. Not only do I have a legal right to be here, I have a constitutionally protected.
No.
This is a constitutionally protected activity, and you're about to violate that.
No.
You might want to call a lieutenant. Seriously. I don't want to have to sue Silverthorne. I want to avoid that.
He wants
And you
to.
will be on the hook for a massive.
The Post Office has asked us to ask you to leave.
You're not federal police. Why don't you call the federal police? You have.
Okay, first of all, he did sue Silverthorne, and he got a settlement, okay? Now, that's technically a win because he got $9,500, but the fact of the matter is a settlement is not an admission of guilt on Silverthorne's part. So, yeah, they can still take warrants out on him and still arrest him for crimes that have been committed here. And that's what they should do, but no, they probably won't because they're too lazy.
I have no jurisdiction in this building.
Mr. Gutterman asserts that only federal police officers have jurisdiction inside a post office, and that the Silverthorne police officers do not, which may not be an accurate statement. According to the Department of Justice Criminal Resource Manual, government property can be categorized in 3 ways for the purposes of federal criminal jurisdiction. The manual states that, quote, first, certain lands fall within the exclusive jurisdiction of the United States. As this term implies, on these lands, federal criminal law applies, to the exclusion of state law. Other properties acquired by the United States fall within the concurrent criminal jurisdiction of the state and federal governments. Finally, the United States may acquire property without accepting any special criminal jurisdiction over it. In this situation, the United States simply retains proprietary jurisdiction over the property. If a federal building is under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction of the United States, it is considered a quote-unquote federal enclave. And under Section 7 of Title 18 of the United States Code, the federal government has, quote, special maritime and territorial jurisdiction over, quote, any lands reserved or acquired for the use of the United States, and under the exclusive or concurrent jurisdiction thereof, or any place purchased or otherwise acquired by the United States by consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of a fort, magazine, arsenal, dockyard, or other needful building. While post offices are considered a needful building, not every post office is a federal enclave, and the analysis to determine the status of an individual building is complex and time-consuming, often requiring unconventional research methods. However, even if the Silverthorne Post Office is a federal enclave, the Silverthorne police officers could still have the authority to protect the post office. According to Section 3061C1 of Title 18 of the United States Code, quote, the Postal Service may employ police officers for duty in connection with the protection of property owned or occupied by the Postal Service, or under the charge and control of the Postal Service, and persons on that property, including duty in areas outside the property to the extent necessary to protect the property and persons on the property. In fact, Poster 7 itself states that, quote, local postmasters and installation heads may enter into agreements with state and local enforcement agencies to ensure that these rules and regulations are enforced in a manner that will protect Postal Service property. Without knowing the arrangements made for security in the Silverthorne Post Office, it's impossible to say whether the officers had the authority to enforce the postal workers' request that Mr. Gutterman leave the premises. But they would be within the bounds of their authority to do so if the federal government had proprietary jurisdiction over the post office property, or if the post office was a federal enclave that made an agreement with local police.
We can work on
If you want to ask me about DWI laws and speeding laws and that kind of thing, I have no idea what I'm talking about. You ask me about this stuff, I know better than your district attorney does.
Here's my business card, you can sue me, okay?
Oh,
I'm not going
that's
to
a
sue
good
you
one.
unless you formally trespass me.
You're asking me to leave.
And I'm respectfully declining unless I'm being formally trespassed. If you formally trespass me, I will leave immediately.
No, he won't leave.
Ma'am, am I free to...
want
They
you to
do
go.
not want you back in.
Am I free to leave?
The building, yes.
I'm asking, am I free to leave?
The building, yes.
So if I'm free to leave, I'm free to stay. So I'm going to go buy my stamp.
They do not want you in that office.
That's not their call.
Yeah, it is.
Well, then formally trespass me and I'll leave. You can't have it both ways. It's not the way it works. I'm sorry. I am not refusing to leave. I will walk out the door immediately.
He has
and never come
refused
back
to
if
leave.
I am formally trespassed. If I am not formally trespassed, I'm going to go buy my stamp. So what do we do?
Go ahead, they're not gonna serve you.
Okay. It's not a no win.
I'll give you my.
So wait, you know what?
card.
You know what?
You're formally trespassed, go.
I want it in writing.
We'll
Just
write it
go.
down.
You're going to give it to me in writing?
We'll write it down.
Okay.
Sure.
And you're not going to buy time for 15 minutes until they close the door and not formally trespass me. I'm giving you 3 minutes to start the paperwork and I'm coming back in.
Mr. Gutterman refuses to leave the premises without receiving a written formal trespass order, which is not legally required under any circumstances. If the post office is under proprietary federal jurisdiction, there are 2 Colorado criminal statutes that may apply to the situation. Section 18-9-110 of the Colorado Revised Statute states that, quote, no person shall willfully refuse or fail to leave any public building owned, operated, or controlled by the state, or any of the political subdivisions of the state, or at any building owned, operated, or controlled by the federal government upon being requested to do so by the chief administrative officer or his designee charged with maintaining order in such public building. If, The person has committed, is committing, threatens to commit, or incites others to commit any act which did, or would if completed, disrupt, impair, interfere with, or obstruct the lawful missions, processes, procedures, or functions being carried on in the public building. Additionally, Section 18-4-504 of the Colorado Revised Statute states that, quote, a person commits the crime of third-degree criminal trespass if such person unlawfully enters or remains in or upon premises of another. Section 18-4-504.5 defines premises as, quote, real property, buildings, and other improvements thereon. And Section 18-4-201 clarifies that, quote, a person enters unlawfully or remains unlawfully in or upon premises when the person is not licensed, invited, or otherwise privileged to do so. A person who, regardless of his or her intent, enters or remains in or upon premises that are at the time open to the public does so with license and privilege, unless the person defies a lawful order not to enter or remain, personally communicated to him or her by the owner of the premises or some other authorized person. Neither.
All right, let me jump in here real quick, guys. Now, us sitting here, you want to put their camera to use there.
It requires that an individual.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
I don't see anything wrong with that. You get to know your local government. Again, I say it, okay? And I'm doing my part, guys, because
he's trying to help
really
out.
Getting old with these assholes, okay?
He's trying to help out.
Let's go back to the video, and I'm sorry for the interruption, okay, guys?
These statutes requires that an individual receive any notice at all from the police, let alone a written formal notice, to be convicted of trespassing. If the post office is a federal enclave under concurrent or exclusive federal jurisdiction, federal law will likely control this issue under the Assimilative Crimes Act, which is found in Section 13 of Title 18 of the United States Code, and incorporates state law into the law of the federal enclave when a state crime is not punishable under the federal criminal statutes. While Poster 7 is likely the applicable criminal law if the post office is a federal enclave, just like the state law, the federal law does not include a formal written notice requirement. Therefore, under either state or federal law, Mr. Gutterman did not need to receive a formal written notice to commit trespass.
Give us your name and date of birth. That's how.
You don't need my name and date of birth for a trespass. No, you don't. You guys don't know the law. Okay, you really don't. I'm sorry.
Okay, Gutterman doesn't know the law either. Apparently the cops don't know the law that well, and they're not familiar with the postal regulations. The postal employees don't seem to know it very well. Fact of the matter is, Gutterman was trespassing, and he's created a disturbance. He's interfered with a lot of things. The big problem is these cops are pushovers. Well, okay, won't do what I say. I mean, how many times have you told the guy to leave, and he refuses? And he's in these cops' faces. But the thing is, with police presence, if you're going to be a policeman, you should act like a policeman, not just be a pushover. Anyway, I thought this was very useful information. It's not my information. I got it from other people's videos, but I'm posting it here because I think it's informative, and I think people need to be aware of it. And we ought to try and educate the post office people, although they probably won't want to hear what we have to say. Furthermore, we may have to figure out how we're going to handle these frauditors if they come and bother us. Not only do they bother employees, they bother the public, and they bother citizens like you and me. Anyway, I thought I'd post this because it's very informative. Again, not my original content, but very valuable, very educational.